like to call the May 3rd, 2021 meeting of the Person County Commission Board to order at this time, and ask Commissioner Sims, if he would, to lead us in invocation, and Commissioner Gentry, would you lead us in the pledge afterward?
I'd be happy to. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for allowing us to be here tonight to take care of county business. We ask that you would lead us and guide us as we go forth and help us to make wise decisions. We ask you to be with those who are serving our country abroad, and we lift them up in our prayers. We ask them to be with our first responders, police, sheriff, highway patrol, as they do their jobs and put their lives on the line every day. Lead us and guide us as we go forth, and grant us safe journey back home when this meeting is over. These things we pray in your most heavenly name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Or approval of the agenda as presented. Any discussion, adjustments, or a motion? We have a motion to approve as presented. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. First on our agenda tonight is public hearing. Item number 1, petition TA-001-21-A, or dash rather, a request by Person County Planning Staff on behalf of the Person County Board of Commissioners to amend the ordinance regulating automobile graveyards and junkyards to include screening requirements for public roads. Do we have a motion to go into public hearing? Have a motion to go into public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. And Ms. Lori Oakley.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
This first item tonight will be presented to you by Angie Blunt. Angie is our newest planner on staff. She started in January. I believe most of you met her at our workshop that we had recently, but she will be handling the first case this evening.
Thank you, Lori. Our first case tonight it's a text amendment, petition number TA-0121. This is a request by Person County Planning Staff on behalf of the commissioners to amend the ordinance regulating automobile graveyards and junkyards. And it's to include screening requirements for private roads. For right now, it only includes public roads. All statutory requirements regarding notice of a public meeting have been satisfied. And I would like to present the planning staff report so that it may be entered into the record for this case. Again, this is on behalf of the Person County Board of Commissioners to amend the ordinance regulating automobile graveyards and junkyards in Person County. Okay, there we go. And it is to include a private road. These are seen from private roads as the ordinance now states as they are seen from public roads. So this would include private roads in that. All right, the requested ordinance changes are to section 3, 5, 6, and 7. The language was amended in these sections to include private road in the definition in section 3, to require the screening of junkyards and automobile graveyards from public and private roads in section 5, to apply the ordinance to residential properties containing a public use visible from a private road in section 6, and adding private roads to section 7A. And the current text in the ordinance regulating automobile graveyards and junkyards in Person County require that the junkyards and automobile graveyards to be screened from public roads and adjacent properties containing public uses such as schools and playgrounds. The proposed text adds private roads to this definition and allows screening for junkyards and automobile graveyards from private roads and from adjacent properties that contain public uses, such as schools, playgrounds, recreational uses. The proposed text will be beneficial to properties that are located along private rights-of-way and will allow equal enforcement of this ordinance. The planning staff recommends the approval of text amendment 0121. The proposed text will include and apply the screening requirements to junkyards and automobile graveyards from private roads as it now applies to public roads. It allows a more equitable enforcement of the ordinance. The text amendment request is consistent with comprehensive plan and future planning goals and objectives of Person County. It is reasonable in the public interest as it will provide clear regulations in the ordinance regulating automobile graveyards and junkyards in Person County. The proposed text amendment meets the comprehensive land use plan, objective 4.1. It establishes design standards and it ensures future development contributes to the aesthetic appearance of the county while limiting development of unsightly uses that detract from the community appearance. We took this to the planning board on April the 8th. A unanimous vote was taken, 5-0, to recommend the approval of text amendment 0121. The board felt that the proposed text amendment was consistent with the comprehensive land use plan and future planning goals and objectives of Person County. The board stated that the proposed amendment was reasonable and was in the public interest. And that is it. Okay. But yes, the planning board did recommend it. And what they approved was a statement of reasonableness and consistency statement. They said that it did meet the objectives of 4.1 of the comprehensive land use plan.
Have any questions, but I do know that I had in the past several months had citizens call up and complain about junkyards or automobiles, and it was on, like I said, private road. And you have really nice homes. You go up the road, really nice homes, and as you're going up the road, right there, as you on that road, you see a really junky-looking house with a lot of stuff in the yards. And you know, again, I think that if you're a homeowner in that private road in that area, you are, you know, you would like for that to look nice. And right now, there's no ordinance that's in place that can be fixed or remedied or talked to the owner about. So I think it's a good amendment to the text, and I certainly would recommend that we approve it.
Do we have anyone here that would like to speak in favor of or opposition to this amendment? Thank you, Madam Clerk. Do we have a motion to close the public hearing? Oh, I'm sorry.
That's okay. That's okay. I know we're trying to get through this. I just, what constitutes a junkyard? What items constitute a junkyard? Thank you.
If I can find where I've placed it.
And the reason for my question is it could be automobiles and other items that could affect a lot more than just
Right.
private roads. I mean, it could be existing things that are maybe
Okay.
not
We've got a
addressed now.
couple of definitions here for junk, and this is from the junkyard ordinance. The term junk shall mean scrap metal, rope, rags, batteries, paper, trash, rubber, debris, tires, waste, or junked, dismantled, or wrecked motor vehicles or parts. A junkyard commercial means any establishment or place of business which is maintained, operated, or used for storing, salvaging, keeping, buying, or selling junk, or for maintenance or operation of an automobile graveyard, but shall not include garbage dumps or county-operated sanitary landfills. And yet there's another definition for junkyard: residential. A residential parcel of land in which an area of 600 square feet or more of junk materials are kept or stored at any given place, whether for profit or not. Materials enclosed in closed buildings, solid waste containers, or rolling stock, i.e. rail cars, trailer, or other containered body not intended or designed to be self-propelled, are excluded from that definition. So the definition of junk would include those items.
There's just debris everywhere. So would this go back and address things that haven't been addressed before on the public as well as the private roadside? Well, I'm always leery of jumping into somebody's personal property rights, but I'm also very aware that it can affect the neighbors. And I think it's a good thing if you're affecting your neighbor in a negative way that it be addressed. So thank you.
Statute, I believe we talked about this previously, though, that junkyards that are existing 5 to 7 years, depending on date of origination, are grandfathered. So this would be newer junkyards that are reported to us and that we could see via GIS.
So you have to go back, 5 or 7 years?
Depending on if we have a record of it or not. 5 years if we have a record, 7 years if we never received a complaint, but it was visible from the road or from aerial images.
Okay, great. Thank you.
County Planning Department received to orchestrate this ordinance?
Can't hear you, Kyle.
How many complaints has the Planning Department received to start the process of this ordinance?
Since I've been here, probably 7. That's from January, and there was a backlog.
Right, I believe we have 30 plus open violations right now, and I'm going to guess at least 75 to 80% of those are junkyard ordinance related versus planning ordinance related. So we probably have at least around 20 cases that are active for junkyard.
Were these complaints around the same exact area, or were they scattered around the county?
Scattered all over the county.
And they did not fall in the current junkyard ordinance?
The ones that did not fall, we were closing them out because they did not meet. For example, if they were on a private road, as soon as we got that and realized that it didn't count, then we closed that one out. So yes, I'm just referring to the open cases that we have.
And were any of these complaints business related?
No, these have been all, maybe one I think was a business, but 99% of them have been on residential lots where people have an excess of treasures that they consider that they want to keep, whether it's junk cars or junk trash or junk debris. But I can only recall one that is a business.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Comments? Okay, do I have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion to come out of public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Item number 2 on the agenda is consideration to grant or deny a request to adopt text amendments to Person County ordinance regulating automobile graveyards and junkyards in Person County. Do we have a motion to adopt as presented?
So moved.
I do have a motion. Discussion? No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. Item number 3, petition TA-02-021, a request by the Person County Planning Department to amend the Person County Planning Ordinance and subdivision regulations in order to comply with the new NC General Statutes, Chapter 160D. Do we have a motion to go into a public hearing? We have a motion. Any discussion? All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. Ms. Oakley?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, I would like to state for the record that all state statutes and planning ordinance requirements have been met for this public hearing. And at this time, I would like to submit my staff report into the record. TA-02-21, which we refer to as the Chapter 160D text amendment. As you might recall from an earlier meeting, I mentioned that in July of 2019, the North Carolina General Assembly adopted the new Chapter 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes. 160D consolidates current city and county enabling statutes for development regulations into a single unified chapter. On March 15th of this year, a joint work session was held with the Board of Commissioners and the Planning Board in order for staff to provide a general overview of the proposed changes to the planning ordinance and to the subdivision regulations. I have slides in front of me, but I was planning on not going through them tonight individually, at least not for the planning ordinance, unless you have specific questions, because these are the same items that we went over at the March meeting. Again, the majority of these changes are required by North Carolina General Statutes. There were a few items that I previously went over at the joint meeting that were optional, such as hardship manufactured homes, or campers being used where there was a natural disaster. None of those items have changed. And again, I'd be happy to go over them if you have specific questions. I do have the slides. Otherwise, I will just move on to the subdivision regulations. Submittal requirements were amended in the subdivision regulations since the draft that you originally received back in late February, early March. You do have the current draft in front of you. We wanted to ensure that it matched the requirements that were outlined in the planning ordinance so far as the number of copies that are submitting to us, including an electronic copy and also the deadline for filing. The only other change that we received notification of since the joint work session was a typo in the table of uses that eating or drinking facilities accidentally read eating our drinking facilities, and that item was corrected. Planning staff recommends approval of TA-02-21. The proposed text amendment will be consistent with the new Chapter 160D of the North Carolina General Statutes and also provides consistency among both ordinances. Staff does believe that it meets the statement of reasonableness and consistency that was included in your packet. It's also on the screen, and that it meets Objective 1.2 of the current comprehensive plan. On April 8th of this year, the Planning Board met and gave a unanimous recommendation of approval, 5-0, of the proposed text amendment. They did have one minor modification, and that was to remove the word "the" in front of Person County in sentence 2 in section 33-4 of the subdivision regulations. It was just a grammatical error. The Planning Board also included their statement of reasonableness consistency that was on the previous screen before you. If you have any questions of me at this time, I'll be happy to answer them.
None? Okay. Madam Clerk, do we have someone signed up to speak in favor of or against this amendment?
Yes, sir, Chairman. All of those who will sign up.
Not at all, okay. All right, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Have a motion to close the public hearing. Any up? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Item number 4, consideration to grant or deny request to adopt text amendments to the planning ordinance and subdivision regulations. What's the pleasure of the board?
For approval.
We have a motion. Any discussion?
Make sure that I get if that includes planning board recommendation and most importantly, the statement of reasonableness and consistency, please.
Motion reflects that.
Thank you.
Any further discussion, board members? All in favor of the motion as stated, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Non-motion carried. Next on the agenda is item number 5, public hearing petition SUB-01-21, a request by DLH Development LLC for a cluster subdivision concept plan for the Highlands at Duncan Plantation consisting of 24 lots on 35.5 acres located on Duncan Plantation Drive off of State Road 17, or Service Road 1711, Kermit Duncan Road on tax map and partial A63-41C in the R or residential zoning district. We have a motion to go into a public hearing.
So moved.
A motion to go into public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. And Ms. Oakley again.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, all state statutes have been met for this case, and at this time, I would like to submit my staff report into the record. I have an aerial map on the screen in front of you. It should also have been included in your packet. Currently, the subject property, which is outlined in the teal color, is vacant and it contains woodlands. The property is zoned R residential. To the west of the property, you have single-family dwellings and woodlands also zoned R. To the north are single-family dwellings in the Crystal Springs subdivision, also zoned R. And to the east and to the south are single-family dwellings in the existing Duncan Plantation subdivision zoned R. The Duncan Plantation subdivision, which I stated is to the south of the property and to the east. Phases 1 and 2 were approved by the Board of Commissioners, and those included Duncan Plantation Drive and also Sequoia Drive. They were approved by the commissioners back in 2004 for 35 lots in those 2 phases. A majority of those lots have single-family dwellings built on them. When the Board of Commissioners reviewed the subdivision plans in '04 and then again in 2006 for a revision, both plans that were presented depicted and were approved for 26 future lots in this area that's highlighted in that teal color, which were labeled as phase 3 and 4. Those phases of the subdivision were never constructed. The approvals thus expired, and they are being proposed at this time as the Highlands at Duncan Plantation subdivision. The subdivision plan is on the screen. Also in your packet, they are proposing a single-family cluster subdivision. There will be a total of 24 lots. Again, originally this was approved for 26. Those 24 lots will be situated on 35.5 acres. Cluster subdivisions allow for a reduced lot size, and the applicant is proposing a slight reduction with the minimum lot size being 40,000 square feet. Setbacks will be as follows. On the front, it will be 25 from a cul-de-sac lot. From the bulb of the cul-de-sac will be 10. Rear will be 15 and side will be 8. The subdivision contains 10.64 acres of common open space, which is along what I call the rear. It'd be the north side of the subdivision. That common open space will include 2 proposed SCMs, which stands for stormwater control measures. They used to be called BMPs, best management practices, basically ponds, in accordance with the Person County Planning Ordinance. Our stormwater consulting engineer has reviewed these plans extensively, and in an email dated December 9th, 2020, stated that the current plans, as shown, are in compliance with all of our watershed and stormwater regulations. The applicant is proposing 2 public streets with cul-de-sacs in the subdivision with 50-foot wide rights-of-way, which will be dedicated to NCDOT. There's a stream that borders the property along the northern side, and the applicant is proposing a 50-foot wide stream buffer. And this property does not lie within a 100-year special flood hazard area according to the FEMA maps. The Person County Land Use Plan identifies this site as suburban residential, which includes residential land uses at densities of 1 to 3 dwelling units per acre. And Appendix O of the Land Use Plan lists the objectives in the plan, which include 1.5, provide for a variety of housing types, densities, and price ranges. So in summary, again, the property is zoned R, and the applicant is proposing to develop a 24-lot cluster subdivision on 35.5 acres. The subdivision will contain 10.65 acres of common open space with 2 stormwater control measures. The proposed subdivision meets the requirements outlined in Section 77 cluster development of the Person County Planning Ordinance, and planning staff recommends approval of the concept plan for cluster subdivision SUB 01-21. At the April 8th, 2021 meeting of the Planning Board, the board recommended unanimous 5-0 approval of the subdivision concept plan SUB 01-21 as presented. And if you have any questions of me at this time, I'll be happy to answer them.
Scott, did I overhear you say that these, number of these lots could be 1 to 3 units per acre?
No, the comprehensive plan, the density in this area per our comprehensive plan says the density should be 1 to 3 acres. So this subdivision falls right in line with what the comprehensive plan calls for this area.
Other questions? No questions. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to speak in public comment related to
Sir,
this?
we do. We have 2 individuals, Ms. Wendy Jones and Mr. Rodney Jones of 160 Duncan Plantation Drive. Do you wish to make comments? Yes. Come forward, please.
Thank you. We are here tonight as the association, and we have some concerns with Duncan Plantation. We have been there for 15 plus years, and we understood when we originally purchased our homes during that time that this new phase would be a part of the original Duncan Plantation, and we understand that it is not going to be part of the original Duncan Plantation HOA. Our concerns also are accessing the main entranceway from Duncan Plantation to access this new phase. Not being, we feel like it would warrant to be a part of our association, given that they access our road, having homeowners association dues, that sort of thing. And then we also have concerns to having a separate HOA. At various times, that association could dissolve. We understand that Mr. Haskins, and I've been in touch with Mr. Haskins, that the homes are going to be stick built, similar situation that we have now, but, verbal communication versus written is separate. But we do have a concern as a homeowners association. We would like this association to be a part of the original Duncan Plantation from the original 2005. Original Steve Kelly had purchased that tract. Jimmy and Portia Lewis went to another deceased individual, went to the, went from Jimmy and Portia Lewis to the bank. And then from the bank went to a individual that's no longer with us now. And then Mr. Haskins purchased it. So I think it warrants us as an association to have concerns, and we really feel like it should be a part of the original association. Again, our concern is have this association, all the lots be sold, somebody come in there, put, manufacture, that sort of thing. and their accessing our road. So we just have concerns as an association and interest to, in our property. So we hope that you will consider that. And any other homeowners feel like they can.
My concern is the wear and tear on the road, because that's landlocked into Kermit Duncan and Duncan Plantation. And you're gonna have heavy equipment coming in and out of there, building these houses and whatnot, and they're just gonna destroy our road. And that's not a state maintained road. That's maintained by us people that live there. So that's my concern.
May we have your name, please?
Dallas Ormond.
Dallas Ormond, O-R-M-O-N-D. And we're at 65 Duncan Plantation.
One other thing I wanted to address, on that map, there is a Lot A. We're kind of not real sure if that's part of this new development or not. Kind of would like to know that. And then there again about the road, what are their plans moving forward is with that road? Because we do have a private road. We want to keep it a private road. You know, and they're going to access this development on our road. So why should they not be responsible for something on that road there? As far as my fellow homeowner said, they're going to be bringing in all this heavy equipment coming in, tearing up to make these new roads. And then once he's done and sold his lots, we've got a road that I don't feel like our homeowners association should have to pay to fix if they're not included in our homeowner association.
Exactly.
That's just my concern. And I am the current president of our homeowners association now.
And again, just to reemphasize, you know, this was originally, we've been there 15 years. This was originally the plan as we understood it way back when. And I think, you know, through various real estate transactions, I think there was some title work that wasn't done because some of the title work was done without, you know, title search done. And I'm happy to provide that here tonight as an exhibit if that's something that you would like to see.
Title search on the original plats that were filed when the whole mass of the land was done, was there restrictive covenants placed on the entire acreage of the property or just portions of the subdivisions being the phase 1, 2, and 3?
From my understanding, yes.
There were restrictive covenants in place?
Yes, and I think what happened is through those various transactions, through K&L Properties, I can't remember the entity name for Jimmy and Portia Lewis, and then through the bank, and then through the deceased individual, and now Mr. Haskins. I think there was some kind of something left out of the actual real estate description. And I did relay that to Mr. Haskins as well. So, you know, it's something I feel like would probably warrant to have a real estate attorney really do a good title search just to see if that was something that was left out, maybe something that was covered through the title insurance. I'm not sure, but I do feel like that is as a homeowner who's been there 15 plus years. And when I bought in there, this was something that I was understood that this whole lot phase, you know, all the phases would be part of Duncan Plantation.
Do you have any of the original marketing materials for when you purchased in your subdivision that marketed this area, the whole area as such? A lot of times they'll be, if it was listed with a real estate agent or developer, if they're selling it public, they will have marketing materials that will provide the different details of what the property is going to be and what the restrictive covenants would be.
Sure, and it's been 15 plus years, so I
Right.
would have to probably go back and try to see if I could, you know, come up with that information.
And your private road, is it paved?
Yes.
Was it built to DOT standards?
It was, yes.
Okay, but
But
you don't want to
It
turn
was
it over
never
to the,
permitted with the DOT, so.
so it wasn't built to the DOT
It's built
standards?
to DOT standards, yes, but it's not a state maintained road.
Okay, but you would
It
be
is a
opposed,
private right.
but you would be opposed to having the state take
We
over?
want it kept as a private
Yeah.
road. We've had issues in the past, and we've actually got little signs up on our street that say, this street is a private road for Duncan Plantation residents and their guests. We had an instance several years ago with people that didn't belong in there. Sheriff was called, came out, and that's what they said. And we kept the road private because we have kids that ride their bicycles up and down the road. We have some of us that get out and walk. We're outside. As a homeowner, I don't want just anybody just flying up and down our road. We try to monitor speed limits. You know, we've got a lot of kids out, and I want to keep it a private road, if at all possible. If there's anything I can do to keep it a private road.
Have you entered, has the HOA entered into any kind of negotiations with the developer of this parcel to address these issues? Have you sat down at a table and negotiated any of these items of concern with the developer of this?
Yeah, again, I've been in touch with Mr. Haskins. We're in agreements to some of the issues, but these are our concerns, not being a part of the original association, and the road maintenance, not being accessing our road in order to get to this new phase where they're going to put these new lots in. So we do feel like it warrants to be able, as part of our association, to pay the dues for our association yearly. And again, it's not an astronomical amount that our dues are. But we do feel like, as an association, if they're accessing our road in order to access another part, that they should be, responsible and be obliged to be a part of our association. We're just a tight-knit association, and we have concerns. Again, we understand that, our concerns again are just having an association, not having something up to speed, dissolving the association. And then we have to drive by. There's certain things that, we as homeowners invest in our property, and we buy into certain associations to protect our interests. So that's our concerns. And again, and even the name of the subdivision, the Highlands at Duncan Plantation, it should be Duncan Plantation. That was originally what was the original presentation. And again, I think it's just from one developer to the other, it's just somewhere fell off the radar. And us as homeowners are the ones that's hurting at the end. We understand that the developer, they're in it for the money. That's our job, just like we all have jobs we do. But we feel like we're homeowners. This is something I think you all can relate to too. We put money in our homes. This is an investment. This is our life. This is our home, and something we want to feel safe at. And this is something that we just feel is a very concern for us.
Question. In regards, in relation to this map that I'm looking at, this center part here is the
Is this the one that's on the screen that you're
Yes, ma'am, I'm
questioning?
seeing the same thing right here. But the center part is what we're talking about specifically, the 24 lots.
Yes,
And
correct.
surrounding this are you guys' homes?
Yes.
Correct. And in order to access that new additional phase, you do have to come down, you have to pass 3 houses on pretty much each side of the road. I don't know the feet. Does anybody know the feet to access that road? But that's the only entrance way to access that new proposed phase.
Mr. Chair. I guess I have a question on, as the county commissioners, can we sit there and make someone have a HOA? I don't know we can do that. No, I didn't think so.
Question.
Yeah. I see you shaking your head, so we can't do that, which I know they want, maybe possibly bring them as a HOA, but we as county commissioners can't make that happen. That has to be.
And just to clarify, Mr. Haskins has said that there would be an HOA, but our concern again, there is too. You can dissolve an HOA. So if it's a separate HOA, you have to go past our development, and we see those houses. We just don't want, it was originally part of the plan.
Right.
And so that's our concern, to add these additional houses, dissolve the association.
Right.
And, again, we bind to an association for certain reasons, and we want to protect our interest.
I understand. My other question is from a legal standpoint, and we're talking about the roads. They have a private road. Is there any legal obligation to the people who are building the construction of tearing up their roads? Like if they can just drive up their road with all this heavy equipment, damage the asphalt, and then they're going to be held liable for it?
Are those private streets owned and maintained by your homeowners association?
Correct.
And I assume that you all have adopted rules
Correct.
about construction equipment and damage, and maybe a bond or a deposit or something that's made to.
It falls on the association, and I know Sequoia, given the homes that have been built on that new road, which is complete now, you know, we have a board meeting this homeowner association meeting this Friday to address these issues. But again, it's going up on your dues that, you know, heavy equipment's coming in, you've got cranes, you've got, you know, all these additional, you know, contractors coming in, and we're responsible. So we have to absorb the cost, which is not fair to the homeowner.
It might be a good time, and probably this has already occurred to you all, if this is approved and construction is going to begin, it might be, sorry. It probably has occurred to you all that if this is approved and the construction is going to begin, that it might be a good time to review your rules and your policies about preventing damage to that private street under your control, and maybe a larger deposit and some other provisions.
But why should our homeowners have to?
Thank you.
No.
How about with that? So to clarify, it's a private road. You basically rule the road, and you can require them to you know, put a bond up or whatever other processes are in place for you. Maybe consult with a real estate attorney on how you'd want to do that, and maybe enter into some further negotiations with the developer.
Say you do not have a copy of the original covenant?
I do have a copy of the covenant.
Okay, and in the concept plan originally, were there two phases to this development, or is this a new, totally new development? Thank you. No, I just wondered if what it said about future development or a new development such as being proposed, and how does that fall under the jurisdiction of the original covenant?
Would, if the original covenants covered it, but a section of it was sold, would that negate if it was, if the ownership was transferred?
It's not a question I can sit here and answer.
Okay.
Without looking back at the property transactions, the original covenants, and I don't know what has happened in the meantime.
Ms. Jones, that's okay. We're okay.
Just to give you a little bit of background information, Duncan Plantation, both streets in there were approved by the board as public roads to be built and turned over to NCDOT standards. That's what was approved, and that what was platted. My guess is going to be that the recession hit, and like a lot of developments, the developers never turned over roads or petitioned them to DOT. Again, I don't know that for sure. I've just seen a lot of instances as that, but I do have the approved plans for the original subdivision, which showed it as NCDOT roads.
Okay. Thank you, Laurie.
Chairman, if I may ask a question while the lady's looking. Is it your understanding that whatever has happened in all the intervening years, that those covenants do not apply or no longer apply to this property proposed for development? Is it your understanding that those covenants no longer apply or do not apply to this property?
As I understand it,
Okay.
been portrayed to me, yes. But again, as when we brought into the association 15 plus years ago, it was, delivered to us that these different phases would be part of Duncan Plantation.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Sims asked a question earlier. I think everyone knows the answer to that. You all, the board, the county, you all on behalf of the county have control over zoning and subdivision regulation, not over private restrictive covenants and homeowners associations. So that is somewhat relevant to your decision, but you can't control that.
Restrictive covenants go with the land. So if there are restrictive covenants in place originally, then we need to know whether or not they're still there.
The question is whether they apply or still apply.
Exactly.
And the answer appears to be no for whatever set of reasons. But I don't know. I can't answer that question.
Right. And again, I've got title, legal real estate documents, but again, several attorneys here in town have done it without title work search.
That may be an expense that you guys have to incur to find out.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any further questions or?
Is the developer here?
I'm not sure. Developer?
Yes, he is here.
Okay.
Would you like to speak to the matter? Oh, please, come on.
David Haskins, I'm the developer. I guess a couple things. The road was originally platted as not a private road, it is part of, like a lot of roads that were developed before the crash. It's a public right of way. It's not part of the HOA. We're going to update the road to DOT specs. We've got a punch list from the DOT of all the things that we need to do to update the road, to bring it to DOT standards. And we'll turn it over to the DOT from the entrance all the way to where we turn in to go into our subdivision. And the original covenants, I've had a couple of attorneys look at them. The way they read is that future subdivisions or future phases may be subject to the restrictive covenants, but it does not encumber future phases to be controlled by those restrictive covenants.
Questions? Does that answer one of your questions?
Mr. Chairman,
He would need to review it before he can give you an answer.
that is the answer.
I'm not a lawyer, but I went to law school, so yeah.
Any further questions of Ms. Haskins?
So with that comment about may or may not, would you not be willing again to make it part of the association then, given?
The issue with making this phase of the subdivision part of the HOA is the same issue that you're bringing up. You're gonna saddle these 24 lots with having to pay to upkeep the road that they're not using, and that honestly, needs some work done to it, but it was put in originally, the original developer did that. We don't have any regulation on that. We didn't have anything to do with that.
So I would argue that Mr. and Ms. Orman, they live in the second house coming in right off of Kermit Duncan. They still are responsible for their dues. These new potential homeowners would still access that portion more than, so why would that not warrant them to pay and join in on our association?
Because that part of the road will be a DOT road, just like Kermit.
And will you permit that with the DOT?
it already is permanent, and we have to bring it up to standard, and we have to turn it over to the DOT to access our part. Because it's already a public right of way, we're just bringing it up to DOT standards, which it never was. And then we'll turn it over to the DOT.
So I would argue to that the Association of Ducky Plantation would have to give you some kind of right of way to do that in order to turn that portion over.
It's a public right of way now, it's not a private right. It was a public right of way. There's a lot of these right of ways that are in limbo because, you know, state regulations were what they were in 2008, but it's a public right of way. If it wasn't a public right of way, if it was private, then the homeowners association would have to pay tax on it. There's no taxes paid on any of those roads or anything. It essentially belongs to the person county.
Again, I still don't understand why you wouldn't want them to be a part of our association, because the stormwater drains, as I understand it, have to be inspected annually.
So they'll be covered by the homeowners association for those 24 lots. And then if there's the issue with those, your homeowners association will have to pay for those.
I understand that, but still they're accessing our road.
The road will be turned over to the DOT.
What about Lot A? Can you clarify that?
Lot A is not part of this. It was just a lot that was subdivided off before the.
Is that part of yours?
Yes, it's owned by them.
So you're gonna sell that as well?
Yeah.
Okay, so my argument again for that is they don't even access any of the new roads. They go down Duncan Plantation more than 400, 600, 700 feet. So they should be a part of Duncan Plantation because they're on Duncan Plantation Drive.
That one lot?
That one lot, yes, because the driveway is off of Duncan Plantation.
Yeah, okay. I don't know, I think we've probably debated this to the extent we
Thank you
can.
so much.
Thank you. Thank you all for your comments. Did we have anyone else, madam? No one else? Okay, do we have a motion to come out of public hearing?
So moved.
Motion to come out of public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Motion carried. Item number 6, consideration to grant or deny request for a cluster subdivision concept plan for the Highlands at Duncan Plantation. What's the pleasure of the board?
We motion to approve.
Have a motion for approval. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. Next item is public hearing on number 7, petition to RZ-01-21, a request by Craig C. Hester for rezoning and / map amendment from the residential to rural conservation on page 2.93 acres, a tax map and parcel 112-13 located on Burlington Road, Highway 49. Do we have a motion to go into public hearing?
So moved.
Motion to go into public hearing. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carried. Ms. Oakley.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the last public hearing and planning item for this evening, petition RZ-01-21, will be presented to you by Angie Blunt, our staff planner.
I'm sorry, I forgot I had to be introduced. I'd like to say that all the statutory requirements regarding notice of a public meeting have been met for this case. I would like to present the planning staff report so that it might be entered into the record for this case. The petition RZ-01-21 is a request by the applicant and owner, Craig C. Hester, for a rezoning map amendment from R residential to RC rural conservation. And this is on 2.93 acres, tax map and parcel number 11213, and it's located on Burlington Road or Highway 49. All right, we have an aerial map showing the areas to the west, which consist of woodlands. It's zoned R residential. The properties to the north consist of warehouse buildings and one single-family dwelling. The property is also zoned R, or residential. To the east shows a single-family dwelling. This is also zoned R. And to the south, single-family dwellings, also in the zoning district of residential or R. The current zoning for that entire area is R, or residential. And the purpose of this district is to provide for single-family residential uses and compatible development. The property is currently a vacant wooded lot. The Person County Land Use Plan identifies the proposed site as a suburban residential and rural residential ag. So it has both of those distinctions in the land use plan. Appendix O of the land use plan also lists that goals and objectives for the county include the following. It's to promote an orderly and efficient land use development pattern which allows for a variety of uses while being sensitive to environmental concerns. The planning staff analysis and recommendation. The applicant is requesting a general rezoning. It's from R, which is residential, to RC, which is another residential zoning, but it's a little bit more lenient. It's RC, or rural conservation. According to Article 7, Section 70 of the Person County Planning Ordinance, the purpose of the RC, Rural Conservation District, shall be to provide for only limited land use controls in areas with limited non-agricultural development. A rezoning to RC from the current R would allow a wide range of permitted uses, some by right and some requiring special use permits. Planning staff recommends approval of the proposed general rezoning based on the Person County Land Use Plan and the future land use map contained within the land use plan. The zoning is a general rezoning request, and therefore no conditions can be placed on the approval and no site plans can be approved with the request. At the April 8th, 2021 meeting of the Person County Planning Board, the board voted unanimously 5-0 to deny the proposed rezoning request. The board felt that the request was not consistent with the Person County Land Use Plan or the statement of reasonableness and consistency. The request is not consistent with the Person County Land Use Plan and future planning goals of the county, as it would allow a variety of commercial uses in a residential area. And the reasonableness and consistency statement, the board is required to make a motion on this statement. The request is consistent with the Person County Land Use Plan and future planning goals of the county, is reasonable and in the public interest as it meets the goals of the Person County Land Development Plan, specifically 1.0, to promote an orderly and efficient land use development pattern, which allows for a variety of land uses while being sensitive to environmental concerns. And again, the planning board did vote not to recommend. They just felt that it did not meet those statements. Staff recommends the rezoning because it's done without condition. We can't take into consideration any of those uses that are listed for the RC because it's just a general rezoning. And we can't really take into consideration what he might plan to do with it at a later time. If it were a conditional rezoning, we could, but it's just a straightforward rezoning from one residential to another.
Any other questions? None. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to make public comment regarding this?
Yes, we do. In favor of the request, we have the applicant, Mr. Frank Hester, 2031 Robert Hester Road, Highlands.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Board. I wanted to clarify what my plans are for this, which really could not do at planning. Got some. My intentions are to put a self-storage place there. That was why I was wanting the rezoning to the RC. The plans are with Betco. That is a draft. That is not, but it will be like that. It just doesn't have all the specifics on it. Betco is probably your most appealing looking building, very neat looking thing. The layouts in the plan, the appearance, time of operation had come up at the planning board meeting. There were some concerns about open 24 hours. It would not be open 24 hours. That's not cost feasible. You would have to have a guard or a watchman there around the clock. Doesn't work for one like that. You know, if you're in a big city and you got a huge building, then maybe you do that. But these type that are in the, rural areas, that's not feasible. Lighting, there will be very minimal lighting, just enough to see. Say if the deputy sheriff makes his round at night and he goes in there and he can pull in to drive and just kind of look down the alleys. It's that very soft lighting they have on the buildings. There's not elevated lights in the air shining way out. There was a concern of increase in traffic. I don't see how that would be. You pretty much put your stuff in there. It's done. You can go to other storage units, places here, and you probably might not even see a car there. If you do, you might see one. And increased traffic on Highway 49. I don't know how you would ever figure that out. But anyway, driving away potential residents, I don't know. Most all that land is already done right there on that road front. So I don't know. I don't see how that affects further down the road, say a mile or two. I just kind of wanted to get out there and let you guys know what I was going to do, because the concerns, and I get the concerns, and I would be the same way. The RC opens things up for anything. I could say one thing and do another, and I get that and I understand that. But I've been toying with this for 2 or 3 years now, and this is my intention. So, and I know if you know me or you don't, you can't put anything on my word, and I get that. But I just wanted you to be aware before you vote of what is actually the plan to go in. And I have detailed stuff of that layout. I don't figure it really matters to you guys with numbers and figures on it, but that's all I got. If you guys have any questions, I'll be glad to try to answer them.
Mr. Hester, I was wondering, what are your plans of hours of operation? What do you envision?
Okay. What I'm thinking, talking from people I know here that have them, as well as I have some other friends out of the county that one in particular, Ray's self-storage going more towards Burlington, Greensboro. He has several facilities, and he kind of was on the same wave as them. It would be kind of like a 7 in the morning to probably 7 in the evening, and that would be it. And I would have a number if there was an emergency, somebody had to get in, and I would come and let them in and stay till they left and let them out. Of course, I'd do that, but 7 in the morning would give you time basically, usually to get there if you have to get there before work, or you have to get there, gives you time after work.
You plan on security fence going all the way around it, certain height?
Yes, sir. We're going to have it fenced in all the way around and have it gated to open and close at those times. And it will be checked behind to make sure it is open and closed.
Security cameras?
Yes, sir.
Chairman Powell. Manager York, Clerk Reeves, do we have a map on this location? I can't find it on my. That's not it there, is it?
Yes.
That's it? Oh, okay, okay, okay. Where is it, where's this actually on the highway? I don't see Wesleyan Road, I see that, but where in relation to Wesleyan Road?
You see where the outline in green? That's the parcel.
I'm sorry, I'm colorblind. Put a
Let's see if
dot
I
on
can pull a better one up here.
There you
Okay,
go.
that one.
But can you put a dot on it? Because he's colorblind. He can't see the color.
Oh, well,
Can you do that?
it's 11213. 11213.
Jesus.
There we go, right there.
There you go, right there.
That's the parcel. And I don't know, you might be familiar with the properties next door. I'm not sure. I guess I don't have the owners' names here, but there's a warehouse. Okay, right there.
Now I saw the
There we
sports,
go.
There you go.
sportsplex nearby also. Where's that at on here?
Way down Wesleyan Road.
Hmm.
Quite a ways.
So are we south of the sportsplex or north towards town?
North.
We're north towards town?
Then you have to get to the zoom out one. We're on Burlington, the sportsplex is on Wesleyan.
Right, and this property we're talking about putting these units are is on, off of Wesleyan.
No,
This
it's off
is
of
closer to
49.
town.
It
This is
is,
closer to
okay.
town.
Yeah.
Wow, okay. I can't see anymore either. I just want to make sure where the property is located.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, right there. And you've probably seen this before.
Yeah, the Katie
It's been there a
Pool
long time.
property is used to be flag leasing, used to work on tractor trailer trucks and all that.
Yes.
Kevin's got it, he works on his heavy equipment there. But it was done years and years ago before the county got zoned.
Right,
That's why it's still are.
right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Do you have an idea of where it's at now?
Yes, ma'am, I do. I know exactly what you're talking about. Thank you.
Any other questions of Mr. Hester? Anyone? Comments?
Thank y'all very much.
So,
We actually have 4 individuals signed up to speak in opposition to the request. Our first one is Mr. Don Vaughn of Greensboro.
Hi, I'm Don Vaughn, and I'm here pro bono representing my old friend Art Winstead and his mother that have 13 acres across from this particular property. I do admire your pick as Ellis Hankins as the county attorney and Mr. Aycock before that. Y'all have done very well. They've been friends for 30 years or so and just great people. We ask that you go with the planning board that voted 5-0 on this particular property. As you can see by, well, some of us can see by the map, I'm just kidding with you. All this is residential in character. This is out of character with the rest of the property. Now, Mr. Winstead has, and his mother, who's 90-some years old, across the street has 13 acres. They've been there since 1927. We worry about traffic here. That was brought up at the planning board. We worry about being in character with the neighborhood. Mr. Winstead, why don't you explain the property, your history?
Well, the history goes back 66 years for me, but first I just want to thank you. You know, this zoning business and this county commissioner business is not easy. I've served on a number of board and commissions back up in Guilford County and realize what the commitment it takes and the amount of effort and just challenges that come up from doing this work. But thank you for that. But my roots in Person County do go back. They go back a long ways. They go back to my mama being born in that house in 1925. My daddy was from over around Olive Hill, and my daddy was a Winstead and my mother was a Winstead. I also have a Brooks, that was a grandmama, and I had another grandmama that was an Abbott. The amount of time I've spent here in Person County, coming in from Guilford County is very, very, very long. I mean, it was stretched from Memorial Day weekend to Labor Day weekend until we got old enough to drive and we could get out of those tobacco fields. So I'm here because my mama told me to come. She told me to show up and be here and to speak against this application for this general rezoning from R to RC because she just doesn't believe it's consistent. You know what? I think my mama's right. I think the planning board was right. I just think that it is inconsistent, you know, to what is going on with all the surrounding properties there, to take that naturally wooded area right there beside the old Flag Leasing Company that we used to, by the way, sneak down there. We were forbidden to cross the highway, but we did. To my knowledge, we never got caught. But I do believe Mama and the planning board are correct. And I would respectfully ask that the Person County Board of Commissioners deny the general use rezoning from R to RC for this property. Thanks, and thank you again for all your work.
Thank you.
I will just say in closing, I think the proponent here made the case for us. This is unlimited uses here. You know, he doesn't have to do, and if it was a court of law, we would object to what he put into evidence because you can't rely on that. You don't know what it is. It's other uses that potentially could go there. It's residential in character. We ask you keep it that way.
Thank you. Madam Clerk.
Next speaker is Mr. Johnny Green of 1430 Huntington Road.
My lot is the second lot south of that lot on 49, 1340 Burlington Road. That lot originally was a flag farm. And to me, it don't make sense putting another business on 49 when we got too many right in there. And reason Flag's business was there because their daddy owned that farm, and they got it when their daddy died. To me, we don't need another business right there on 49, because if he wanted to, he can put 2 houses on that lot. I'm okay with that. But people going into these storage buildings, how many businesses is run out of a storage building? You got people running vending business. They got Pepsi-Cola trucks going in, dropping off drinks. They got Little Debbie is in one of the storage buildings. And who's to say what kind of business is going to be run in a storage building? A storage building is supposed to be storage, but people do not use them for storage. They use them for business. So that's all I got to say. But you think about what's going on in a storage building. It ain't for storage. They use them for businesses. And how many businesses can be run out of that lot? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rand.
And our last speaker on this topic is Mr. Mike Harmon, 1270 Burlington Road.
Good evening.
Good evening.
For clarification, that 1270 Burlington Road is the piece of property that I manage. I actually live in Franklin County. My name is Mike Pardon, and I manage and represent all the properties owned by KD3 Investments, as well as Triangle Crushing and Screening for KD Pool. KD3 Investments is opposed to the rezoning of the adjoining property owned by the Hesters. I advise Mr. Poole that rezoning and subsequent building of a self-storage facility would have a negative impact on his property value, as well as the neighborhood in general. KD and his family have always and continue to coexist peacefully with homeowners in the community. and try to help others when they can. He cannot see how this projected use would help the neighborhood in any positive way. The amount of people alone that would be in and out of this facility, constantly moving in and out, in 1 year would have to raise crime by way of theft and damage. I do not think the Hesters or anyone else would want this project beside their home or business. Therefore, KD3 Investments as well as Triangle Crushing would be opposed to this project. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And that's all. Okay, do we have a motion then to go out of the public hearing?
So moved.
Motion to go out of public hearing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. Item number 8 on the agenda is consideration to grant or deny request for rezoning, rezoning/map amendment from residential to rural conservation on 2.93 acres, tax map and parcel 11213. What is the choice of this board?
Make a motion that we do not rezone this property.
We have a motion to not approve. Any further discussions or comments?
I have a question for staff. Staff approved this, but it seems to me that the rural conservation designation wouldn't include what looks like a light industrial project. Does
Well, I mean, we can't take that into consideration at this point. This is strictly a rezoning. It's not based on on any of those uses in the RC.
okay, but the rezoning, once it's rezoned,
Once
he
it's
can put a
rezoned,
commercial building, an
That's
industrial building, or anything at all, which I think is maybe we need to address the rural.
anything that is within that RC zoning, it's possible he could do that. If it does not require a special use permit, where he would have to be back here before you guys, then he could make application and do that.
Okay, but
The
that,
RC,
in my mind, that negates the rural conservation designation. It doesn't sound like rural conservation to me.
It's
Just-
on my wish list.
Oh, okay, thank you. Thank you for the clarification. Okay.
Further questions or comments? All in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. Thank you. At this point in our commissioner meetings, we do have a 10-minute period set aside for public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have anyone signed up to make public comment?
Yes, we have 4 individuals.
Brenda, I can't hear you. I can't hear you.
Jeff?
Thank you. We have 4 individuals signed up to speak during informal comments.
Okay, and the first one?
We have Elizabeth Bratcher of 976 Estate Road, Samora. Do you wish to speak?
Yeah, I'm going to defer to Cecil Barker.
And Mr. Barker is not signed up. Do you wish to sign up, Mr. Cecil Barker? So Ms. Bratcher is deferring her time to Cecil Barker. Could you, Mr. Barker, you mind come signing up for me? So Chairman, are you going to designate a time for each speaker?
And we do have
4, we have 4.
4 total, yes. Let's give it a little.
2.5 minutes. Yeah.
Okay, you'll keep time for us, 2.5 minutes, Mr. Barker?
Yeah,
Thank you.
I won't take that long.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, guys. I'm a local builder here in town, and last month we had the county commissioners graciously come to our Home Builders Association meeting. And basically what I wanted to talk about is, as a local home builder and contractor here in the county, we're experiencing a lot of problems lately with materials deliveries, et cetera. But the permitting process is for both environmental health and building inspections has grown over the last year. And over the last 4 to 5 years, I think both those departments have seen a rapid increase in services requested. And I think their revenues have grown approximately 100% over the last 5 to 6 years. So I know that they are asking for additional personnel to help expedite those permits. And I think when you look at their numbers and the fact that their revenues have doubled over the last 5 to 6 years, those positions are warranted. As a builder, our time is money for us, and the quicker that we can get to the building stage, the better. And with rapid influx of, we've seen a lot of material escalation right now. So the quicker we can take a product to market, it's better for our customers. If there's something that could be done to add positions to those departments, it would certainly help us as an industry. And that's basically all I've got, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Cynthia Lynch, 395 Union Grove, Church Road, Her Mills.
Good evening. I realize that this board has many issues that you need to tackle, and I expect others will speak on some of those other issues tonight. So I'm just going to focus on one, and that's the need to keep a good stock of active farmland. The results of the survey that was taken as part of the process in developing the Joint Comprehensive Land Use Plan, it showed that preserving working farms and open space was the second most important principle, and a rural lifestyle was the second favorite aspect of Person County. Having lived in a rural area in other states, I have seen what happens as farmland is gobbled up and the supporting service that farms need to support them, they start to disappear. And in connection with that point, I'd like to mention that although some of us have not lived here for many years, we come to Person County because we like what we saw, and we don't want that to drastically change. Some of us have come from areas where change did not go well, and we may be able to caution you, just as I have about the loss of farmland. I saw what happened. When farms started to disappear, the services started to disappear, it became harder and harder for the farmers who stayed to maintain a farm. I don't want that to happen here. I love farms. I came here for farmland. That survey showed that people love farmland. They love the rural area. That's why they're here. We don't want that to change. Now, I trust that there are people in Person County with expertise in areas that could be of help to this board. You've got a lot of things that you've got to tackle. But there's a lot of people in this county who know a lot of stuff. So I'm going to respectfully suggest that you consider extending the time that's allowed for informal comment to allow residents and to encourage them to come and to engage with you more fully and to share with you their ideas and their hopes for this county. You may find some answers that maybe you haven't even considered. So I would encourage you to extend the time and let people come and express their thoughts to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have Cindy Martin, 396 Shore Acres Drive in Samora.
Good evening. Last commissioner meeting, I spoke to you as a former candidate, talked about our promises with the mega park. Tonight, I wasn't going to speak. I was just going to show up with my family, holding signs reminding you that we want the mega park filled, that our Duke Energy workers are in jeopardy. If we can generate more power, maybe we can save them. But if not, we need to have an alternative here. What drove me to speak tonight? The 8-year-old little boy back there. I asked him what he wanted on his sign. He said, "Save my daddy's job." I live with this every day. When my husband comes home from work, it's a concern. Is he going to get the call not to go back tomorrow? Is tomorrow going to be the day they tell us that they're going to decommission the plants? So I decided to speak tonight because you don't live with it every day. You live with it when you guys meet and talk about it. that our county does. We have over 200 people employed at 2 plants. They all have families, just like mine. I'm just asking you to please, I know there's a presentation tonight about the mega park. Really listen to what they're saying, see what our options are, and see what we can do to save these families. It matters to mine, it matters to those 3 kids, and it matters to a lot more. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our last speaker tonight for informal comments is Mr. Paul Lynch, 395 Union Grove, Church Road.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I will yield my time back.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item number 9, discussion and adjustment, approval of the consent agenda as presented. What's the pleasure of the board?
So move approval.
Have a motion to approve. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Item number 10 is presentation on Person County Mega Park Site. Commissioner Gentry.
Oh, thank you, Chairman. Tonight, I would like to introduce Joe Hines. He's a senior principal and director of economic development for the Timmons Group. In his tenure there, he's helped over clients realize over $12 billion in announced investments with over 14,000 jobs created by national and international companies, including several award-winning projects that have literally transformed the communities within. As a recognized expert in community, infrastructure, and site preparedness, Joe routinely presents to local, state, and regional organizations and various conferences on what it takes to have a prospect ready, helping communities prepare for, recruit, and land their next project. In addition, Joe's developed the Simmons Group tier system as a roadmap for community and site preparedness that has been codified by several local government and state clients. Joe is an NC State Civil Engineer graduate, holds an MBA from Duke's Fuquay-Greena School of Business, He's a professional licensed engineer in multiple states and currently serves on the Southern Economic Development Council Board of Directors, NC State Civil Construction and Environmental Engineering Board, and recently served on the Fuquay School Board of Visitors at Duke University. Tonight, I'd like to welcome Joe Hines from the Timmons Group.
Thank you all very much for your time tonight, and look forward to discussing kinds of trends that we're seeing in the industry as far as how that might affect the mega park, what's happening with COVID, and a few other things that are going on as well. Is there a clicker for me as well?
Yeah.
Is that better? Okay, sorry about that. I MC a Duck Unlimited dinner at my hometown, so used to speaking hard into it, but anyway. All right, I will try to do this. All right, thank you all very much. Again, my name is Joe Hines. I'm with Timmons Group. I am the Director of Economic Development and a Senior Principal in the firm. I've been a partner with Timmons for over 15 years now. And we'll give you a little bit of history about Timmons. Which way do I need to point? There you go. Okay, can everybody see the presentation okay? Okay. All right, sounds good. I'm going to provide a little bit of an overview about Timmons Group, talk a little bit about some economic development and site selection trends that are going on right now. What are we seeing trends in the marketplace post-COVID? Talk about energy infrastructure and how the park sits within the context of that. Talk a little bit about the mega park. And we ran some financial scenarios on what could be a realistic scenario for Person County for phase 1 development. And then we'll open it to questions and answers. So a little bit about Timmons Group. We currently have 5 offices in North Carolina. We have 18 offices across the country. We were established in 1953 by Mr. Timmons. He was a Clemson graduate. He established a firm in the process of building the interstate highway system. He was a land surveyor first, engineer second. We're over 700 employees nationwide. We have over 200 in North Carolina. I sit here as one of 700 people here today representing you, representing the company to you. We are a full-service engineering and technology firm from economic development, engineering, infrastructure design, and technology, and we worked in 50 states in 2019 and 2020. We also believe in being good corporate citizens. We just committed a 5-year commitment to feed more, a financial commitment, and then and on top of that, we actually host food drives at our offices and produce a lot of food for that organization. So a little bit about my background. I mentioned I'm a senior principal and director of economic development. Ms. Gentry covered a lot of these items. So North Carolina, educated, North Carolina, love it. Lived in Greensboro and Raleigh for a number of years before I moved back to our family farm in Virginia, and very much want to see this area succeed. So better economic development practice. We are committed to our clients' long-term economic prosperity. As Ms. Gentry mentioned, we have helped our clients realize over $12 billion in announced investment and over 14,000 jobs in various roles of support, from infrastructure preparedness and site preparedness through actual deal closing capabilities, where we are literally in the throes of things until the announcement is made. We have conducted site assessment studies for over 500 sites in the Southeast, so we feel like we have a really good handle on what's going on in the economic development community and what other sites are available. We've performed GIS site selection studies in over 100 localities in both Virginia and North Carolina. We work with site selectors all the time to evaluate sites for prospective industries, and we work with the localities to prepare the sites and infrastructure to be competitive. So some recent high-profile projects we've been involved with. We just wrapped up the North Carolina offshore wind study. We were part of a consortium with BVG Associates out of the UK. We have done a number of projects with them over the years related to the offshore wind market, East Coast in particular. We teamed up with NC State and the North Carolina Clean Energy Tech Center, and we just got that report completed at the end of last year. Took us a while to get it published for final editions, but it was published on March 3rd, I believe. So that represents a $100 billion supply chain market opportunity. And you can probably sit here and say, why are you talking about that in Person County? I'll show you a slide in just 1 second. I'll show you that. But in terms of cross-state collaboration, Virginia, Maryland, and North Carolina came to an agreement. They call it the Smart Power, which is Southeast and Mid-Atlantic Regional Transformative Partnership for Offshore Wind Energy Resources. So they really got creative to come up with that name, but they did. And we're currently working with several potential developers of facilities along the supply chain and on the coastline as well for the ports. So why is this important in Person County? Here is a list of suppliers who either supply the offshore wind market or have the ability to supply them, that's kept by the Southeastern Wind Coalition. All right. As you can see, North Carolina has a lot of advanced manufacturing capacities, but if you look at, if Virginia's going to be one of your major ports to deal with, you guys are right in line in that supply chain to move product from west of you over to the ports. So you're in a good location in general. The mega park could possibly benefit from that, as well as any other product that you have out there in the market. The Fujifilm announcement, we were involved in that. Blake Hall, who was one of our principals in Raleigh, he was trying to be here tonight, except he had a kid event that he had to go to, so we certainly understand that. That was located in Holly Springs. It was a North Carolina certified site. We helped them get them through the site certification process, very similar to here. A $2 billion investment, 500,000 square foot, and that's $4,000 per square foot investment. It's a lot of money, okay? 725 high-paying jobs. We assisted them all the way up through, literally on the phone with them and the client until 1 o'clock in the morning before the announcement, trying to make sure that all the site issues were clarified before they signed the letter of intent and made the announcement. It's about 25 minutes from the parent facility in Research Triangle Park. That's important to understand that there are a lot of parent facilities in Research Triangle Park that are looking for satellites for their product to be developed. 5 months from RFP to announcement. It's a big deal. That's becoming a norm. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what is driving the prospect locations decision-making. Really, it's access to markets, workforce, logistics infrastructure, transportation costs, that's rail, dredge for trucking, shipping costs, total cost of ownership, which includes energy, that's electrical and natural gas, utility costs, tax rates, capital investment. And then in the last 5 years, sustainability and renewable energy alternatives has become a very hot topic. But if you look at where Person County is located, it's located right on the edge of the Piedmont Atlantic with access to 3 major markets. And this is an America's 2050 map where it's predicting the American populations and market demands. And you can see a large part of it's going to be on the East Coast and in the Midwest. And you have access to all those markets from your current location. So a little bit of the trends that we're seeing from a consultant's perspective. There's a whole series of events that takes place before somebody picks up the phone and contacts Person County or Sherry Wilburn, or even the state for that matter. They do a lot of logistics and workforce analysis, and that's usually completed first. They can do that without anybody knowing about it. That data is readily available. The prospects and consultants will usually go directly to the states and the regions, depending upon the relationships they have, and say, okay, well, this is a project. Here's how it's framed up. They'll usually sign NDAs, so confidentiality is a big deal. And then they will basically allow them to help usher the process through. So maintaining good relationships with your state and regional groups, making them fully aware of your product is probably one of the most important relationships you can maintain. That speed to market matters. The projects move in months and not years. My dad did economic development on a volunteer basis in our hometown in the early 80s. He helped land a couple of prospects, but they were 18 to 24 month run-up times, recruiting and getting them to come to the hometown. Great when they got there. What it meant for me and why I fell in love with economic development was my best friend at 15 years old didn't have to move because his dad could get a new job at one of the new plants coming to town. So it literally changes communities, and it's a beautiful thing about economic development. Ready to go and publicly controlled sites rule. So you really, the most important thing is to be able to have that control. They don't like the volatility of a private property owner literally doubling, quadrupling, or going up tenfold on his price overnight if he thinks the deal is imminent. They need to have that cost certainty into their model, so they want to know the site's controlled and there's a set price on that. And due to market drivers, part of the reason why timeline's getting so short is once they make an announcement, their competition knows exactly what they're doing. So they have to keep things very tight-lipped, confidential, until they make that announcement. And literally, we have had engineering plans done, moving motor graders into a site, and literally within an hour after the governor's made the announcement, they're switching on the diesels and they're starting work on the sites. That's how quickly these prospects are moving and how confidentially they're doing it. We also will do a set of plans and like say a IDA, EDA, or EDC name set under the project name. Amazon was an example, Project Tango, and the local IDA, we did the plan set, got that through the state approval process for them under that project name, and then when they announced, everybody knew it was Amazon. And incentives do matter, but they matter after you become finalists. And the bottom line to this is 100% of your success is really about 70 to 80% out of your control. I was involved in daily phone calls for the Toyota Mazda Procedural and Greensboro Randolph megasite. We thought we had nailed it. Everybody was betting their lifetime savings that they were coming to North Carolina. But evidently there was an experience that Akio Toyota, the grandson of Toyota, had in Alabama that made him flip the decision from the North America team's recommendation of Greensboro to go to Alabama. So you just don't know what that decision-making criteria is, and that's something that's completely and totally out of your control. We controlled everything that we could to get to that point and be number two. But to quote Ricky Bobby, if you ain't number one, you're last. So what are some of these drivers behind these decisions for prospects, okay? This is the top 10 criteria that's put together by Site Selection Survey of the corporate real estate executives. Workforce skills was number one, continues to be. State and local tax scheme, transportation infrastructure, utility infrastructure, both cost and reliability, land, building prices and supply, and the ready-to-go sites are an issue right now because they're getting consumed in the marketplace. I've never seen the activity as hot as it is in my 30-year career as it is today. Since the first of this year, first 60 days of this year, we had around $6 billion worth of prospects, none of them overlapping, and over 8,000 jobs hanging out there looking at sites for our clients. Okay, a lot of them are in queue to close. A lot of them might be going down to Georgia or Alabama or South Carolina, but all of a sudden, first year after the presidential election, you're usually pretty busy, but I guess because of COVID, everything got backed up, and it's just like the floodgates have opened. So you gotta be ready to go. Ease of permitting and regulatory procedures. Permits are getting more and more difficult to acquire, more and more cumbersome. So the fact that you actually have a COE and an NCDOQ permit in hand, it's a pretty big deal because you can modify that pretty easily and meet a timeline the prospect might have. Right to work state, you're strong there, availability of incentives, and access to higher education. So I tried to rank these where North Carolina sits within the criteria, as well as Person County, and the ones that are white are more or less neutral. Those are ones that you don't have much say over at this point in time. So going back to how fast are these prospects moving, okay? I've been tracking announcements since 2009, and these are some pretty substantial announcements, but the ones to the left, Backcountry and Rolls-Royce, took about 9 months. But then all of a sudden, in the early 2010s, we started seeing it trending downward, and that timeline getting shorter and shorter and shorter. And part of that was availability of information for companies to do their analysis. Okay, so this is a chart that represents the time from the initial contact, the first time Person County is contacted until an announcement is made. It represents 11 projects, $8.5 billion in investment, over 14,725 jobs, average of 773 million investment, 1,340 jobs in 5 months from initial contact to announcement. So you got to be ready to go. Bottom line, got to be ready to go. And the Toyota Randolph mega site went 1.6 billion, 4,000 jobs, and that decision was made in 5 months. So how do we approach it? We approach it 2 ways. One, there's pre-prospect planning, okay? It's like basketball, football during the week. You're getting ready for the games and the weekends. What you're doing is you're putting a game plan in place to essentially increase your odds of success of winning that next game, the next time that prospect shows up. Then you have post-prospect execution. That's when the prospect shows up. You have to respond and respond quickly. You have to know what are good decisions and what are bad decisions. You have to run those scenarios out and play those games out. And usually you got to respond in 48, 72 hours. Sometimes you get a week, but very rarely. Sometimes you'll get a couple weeks, but usually by the time you get that phone call, you need to be able to at least put a majority of that information together in that short time period. So what's important about market demand? I developed this as the tier system that Supervisor Gentry or Commissioner Gentry pointed out. We developed this in 2012 to help our clients understand the development process. And there are really 5 major steps to development along the way. It's site negotiation, site control and zoning, get your master planning, your due diligence, then getting to a tier 4 where you can deliver that infrastructure in 12 months or less simultaneously with the prospect, and then going to either a pad ready site. So all they got to do is literally go out and get the building. I first rolled this out and I got asked, Joe, what about a tier 0? We have nothing. Can you guys find us a site? So we started doing GIS site selection studies because we have over 140 GIS professionals in our company. And we've combined those two, engineering and GIS, and we've really come up with a good process to identify your best sites moving forward. And so where's the rubber meet the road? Okay, what you care about is time and money. As I say, we put enough man on the moon as engineers, give enough time and money, we can do anything. In this business, no matter how much time and how much money you can get back. So typical investments on a per step basis. So tier 0, if you have an identified site, can be anywhere from 4 to 10 plus years, depending upon your political will. A tier 1 site, once you've identified and negotiated, can be 3 to 7 years to full development. Tier 2, 2 to 4 years. Tier 3, 12 to 36 months. You're getting to where you're competitive, but not really sometimes. And then tier 4 is where you're in that 70 to 80% range, and that's preferred by prospects. At that point in time, you've probably spent, depending upon how the size of the site, a small site, $5 to $50+ million on it. And you have to look at this kind of on a per acre basis when you look at these numbers. And then pad ready is about $100 to $150,000 per acre, depending upon geography and location. So really the most important thing to take away from this is a tier 4 certified site, and that's the same thing as North Carolina certified site, brings certainty to a prospect, and that certainty brings business. And in this business, a lot of times time is greater than money and a competitive advantage in that site selection process. So what are some of the trends that are going on in the marketplace? What's happening since COVID-19? This is the Site Selectors Guild, which is a group of about 40 plus site selectors. And they've put the information together. They host guilds, they host different things that have economic developers come meet with them, talk about what the trends that are going on. But what's happening is big cities are out. Everybody's moving away from the DCs and the New Yorks of the world. They're going to more less metropolitan, more rural type metropolitan like Raleigh, Greensboro, actually moving away from Charlotte type thing and areas like that. The businesses that are really hot right now are biotech and life sciences, part of it's reshoring, nearshoring, transportation and logistics. If we didn't have Amazon, didn't have data centers in place, we probably wouldn't survive COVID as well as we did. Software and IT, that's your data centers. And then food and beverage manufacturing is another one, because you're having a lot of people now ordering the food online, and you're having to essentially prepare those in different locations and be able to ship that out. Advanced manufacturing, we're starting to see a rise in investment like we haven't in biotech and life sciences for a long time. Artificial intelligence is improving everything. When you look at Jeff Bezos' background, he's actually a computer engineer from Princeton. I think he might have had electrical engineering degree too, but he's big into AI. He's big into computer programming to solve problems. And that's why he's been so successful at what he does. But everybody else is starting to get into that as well too. And NC State's big in that also. E-commerce, they're projecting that sales are going to hit 1.5 trillion in 2025. That's by Jones Lang LaSalle, one of the biggest real estate companies out there. Accelerated, Forbes COVID has accelerated the e-commerce pace by 4 to 6 years, which I believe. So data centers, gosh, that is moving and moving quickly. And data centers are one of the heaviest power consumers in the market right now. Every time somebody uses their iPhone, it's getting downloaded to a data center. And ironically, that's what's lending to, the iPhone is actually what's lending to the chip shortages out there right now as well too. So electrical vehicles and battery manufacturing, what we're seeing is a big technology disruption going on right now. It's not just an evolution of a market, it's a technology disruption. They're expecting electrical vehicle sales to rise by 70% in 2021. Market demand is going to be about 12.2 million vehicles a year in 2025, and that's a 52% annual growth compounded. So let's see if this works. Oh, there you go. The graph right here is essentially the demand in electrical batteries by industry, and I believe the blue is the electrical passenger electrical vehicles right there in the blue. So that's the battery demand. I think it's going to be 2030. Sorry, my eyes aren't as good as they used to be. So reshoring, nearshoring of overseas industries. We're starting to see pharmaceuticals and API, that's active in pharmaceutical ingredients that go into your medicines. Some of those they can store, have a longer shelf life, and we're working with a company right now that is got a large grant from the government, I think a $354 million grant from the government, to essentially build a facility to make the raw ingredients that have a 4 to 5 year shelf life before they actually combine them into the actual pharmaceutical product. And my sister's a clinical pharmacist for a living. She works at a hospital down in Orlando. And so this is a big deal because what happened was we had a lot of pharmaceuticals overseas, and we realized that it was a really national defense issue because if biological and chemical warfare comes into place, we're potentially at risk. So they're looking at developing a number of these facilities where they're going to make the raw product that has a higher stability, longer shelf life, and store it for national defense. And then when it gets to within a year of its shelf life, they'll put it actually into the marketplace and rebuild new inventory as well. Medical supplies, I'm working with a glove company right now that 99% of the gloves that are used in the medical and pharmaceutical industry as well are made overseas right now. And the US is trying to bring that market back over here. Semiconductors and computer chips. There's been a lot of articles and a lot of a 60 Minutes News article last night, as a matter of fact, on that and what's going on with that. So what's going on in that industry, okay? We kind of certified your site as a chip site, microchip site, or semiconductor site. I believe y'all worked with Joe Magno, who was very involved in the Global Foundries Project up in New York as well. But what is driving this market, and it really is an issue post-COVID, the Apple and iPhone, they start using small chips in the phones, okay? That was a Steve Jobs thing in the early 2000s. Vehicles, medical supply demand has increased with COVID. So everything right now that has any computer technology has to have a chip in it, and that's what's driving that particular market. Goldman Sachs report just came out not too long ago, said 169 US industries use semiconductors in their products. And again, these are all articles that have been published literally within the last couple of months about the shortage on chips. So why is it coming back to the US? The US share of global semiconductor industry in 1990 was 37%. I know we built out a bunch of sites with heavy infrastructure because we thought chip manufacturing was going to stay in the US. Now it is 12%. So Singapore, South Korea, Taiwan, they all put big bets down and incentivized that industry to come over there such that they could capitalize on it. And they've done a good job. They've reduced their market share in the world to 12%. So 75% of that chips are coming from Asia right now. Whole bunch of stuff going on in that industry. So I would encourage you to go look up the 60 Minutes News article that came out last night talking about the chip shortage, and Leslie Stahl was the one who did the article. A very comprehensive overview, but basically the long and short of it is Intel, who is one of the leading US producers of chips, is way behind the curve. They've been making standard chips. TSMC, which is Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, is the leading researcher and chip producer in the world, and they are producing chips that are 30% faster than Intel have a huge R&D division, and Intel is really kind of the generic of their chips, and they're playing catch up right now and really trying to get back up to speed. And then as soon as Intel announced their $20 billion announcement, TSMC announced another $100 billion to go towards investment in R&D and upgrades. So what's happening with the congressional effort? So Congressional Representative Ted Budd has supported this. This is House Resolution 7178, which proposed, I think, in June of 2020. It's called the Helpful Incentives to Produce Semiconductors for American Act, CHIPS for America Act for short, kind of like the Smart Power acronym. Tax credit for semiconductor equipment for manufacturing facilities through 2026. North Carolina Department of Commerce through the National Institute of Standards and Technology is going to carry out an R&D program to accelerate the microelectronics through creation of manufacturing, USA Institute for Semiconductor Manufacturing. What was interesting was they had the CEO of Intel on the 60 Minutes News article, and he was talking about the fact that they got so far behind on this and that they are playing catch up and they need the US government to help them with this. So let's look at the US energy infrastructure, and let's look at the Southeast infrastructure in particular and look at where Person County is. Excuse me, I'll take a sip of my water. So here's a map of the energy grid in southeastern United States. The dots on the map are power plants. The bigger the dots, the larger the power plant. And I've got a blue circle around essentially the Duke Energy plants here in Person County and where your Person County megasite is. So let's look at North Carolina and Virginia energy infrastructure. I know Duke Power came and talked to you all about their facilities, and I think there's a lot of questions as to what they're going to do. One thing that is very critical, or was critical to the success of a lot of energy, was the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, which would have gone through the middle of Virginia and come down Interstate 95 and gone east to Hampton Roads. And then you have another one called the Mountain Valley Pipeline, which has got an interconnection point here coming in and tying in just north of your site. Atlantic Coast got killed. Mountain Valley appears to be on a lifeline right now, so we're not sure exactly what's going to happen there. But my opinion, not Duke's opinion, my opinion is Duke was delaying a decision to what to do with this particular plant until they knew what the natural gas platform was going to be moving forward, and that included Atlantic Coast Pipeline. A lot of people don't realize, while Dominion is the front face for the Atlantic Coast Pipeline, they own 52%. Duke Energy owned 48% of that. So now look at Person County here. Look at all the electrical infrastructure you have coming together in and around that particular plant. Okay, nowhere else in North Carolina do you have that infrastructure coming together, that transmission infrastructure coming together. Those transmission lines are very, very valuable to Duke Energy. Okay, so I personally don't see them outright abandoning this plant. I see them putting something else into effect. It's just a matter of what they're going to do. But that energy infrastructure is very, very important. Also want to point out, Microsoft, one of their largest data centers in the world is in Boydton, Virginia, just north of the line, North Carolina-Virginia line, and that's where it's located. And Dominion actually built 5 miles worth of transmission line to get into that site. Just kind of a little bit of a fluke they got there, but that was a site that Apple, which ended up going to outside of Charlotte, Mount Airy, North Carolina, was a finalist for back in 2011. And Microsoft was going to go in Montgomery County, Virginia, outside of Blacksburg, had a karst issue, which is essentially a sinkhole. And they were getting ready to leave. And Virginia said, well, why don't you go look at the site in Mecklenburg County? And now they're going to be over $5 billion investments. Project JEDI, which is Joint Enterprise Defense Initiative, and that's the Department of Defense consolidating all their IT operations under one roof, or expanding facilities in that particular location. Did a hard hat tour. It's very well secure, very well protected. A lot of water demand, a lot of power demand, but that's where Microsoft has got one of their largest data centers in the world. So is a data center corridor realistic around here? I think it is. Microsoft went out and purchased 3 additional sites in Mecklenburg County and adjoining Brunswick County. They need to be within 20 miles of a latency ring, which means they need to be a 20-mile fiber run away from the site. And then they're looking at other satellites. So I don't know whether they would come down here or not, but I think you have all the infrastructure in place to be attractive to the data center industry. So what are the heavy power uses in today's market, and really where should you be marketing your efforts on the site? Semiconductor plants, obviously, data centers, electrical vehicle manufacturers, and electric vehicle battery manufacturers. And really, when it comes right down to it, workforce, site readiness, and timing are all critical to those decisions moving forward. So let's talk a little bit about the Person County Mega Park. We went through the master planning exercise with your staff and came up with about 1,350 acres. Phase one was a 2 million square foot manufacturing facility. It was modeled, I believe, after the Global Foundry facility up in New York. We can get up to 10 million square feet. So that 2 million square foot is 20% or 1/5 of the capacity of the site. You have 3 230 kV electrical lines crossing it, 5.5 MGD of water with the ability to go up to 21 million gallons per day water capacity. You have a Corps of Engineers North Carolina DEQ permit for phase one that's in place until 2030. Very valuable permit to have in place. I doubt we would get one of those today. So TSMC, which announced in Arizona, this is the $12 billion facility. They're going in north of Arizona. We subscribe to a national database where I can tell you where all the energy infrastructure is in the country. So I pulled the site, and this was about 1,129 acre site right here. And it's got several 230 kV and one 500 kV line running through that particular site. And not too dissimilar for what you have here in your Person County Mega Park. So that's located probably about 25, 30 minutes from downtown Phoenix, just north of Glendale. But a lot of similarities in terms of the two sites. So this was a $12 billion announcement. Okay, that's nothing to sneeze at. I remember when 12 million announcement was a huge announcement, but 12 billion is getting to be not unusual anymore. 3.8 million square foot, that comes out to be about $3,160 per square foot investment. 1,900 full-time jobs, 1,129 acre tract, a little bit smaller than what you have. Land purchase price of $89 million. They purchased the land for $89 million. Incentives by the city of Phoenix ended up adding up to over $205 million, and I'll show you how you can get to those incentive numbers in just a minute. $62 million for roads, $37 million for water, and $107 million for wastewater. So why North Carolina for the semiconductor industry, okay? The states that historically attract them are starting to have issues. Arizona, they had the other announcement for Intel, moving forward with the brand new plant, another $20 billion. Water is an issue. Water supply is an issue. They're going to run out of that, okay? Texas, after we had all those outages during the winter storms, that's death to a manufacturing plant. A 3-day outage when it takes you 3 months to make one chip is a really bad thing, okay? New York, weather and the workforce. They're having a tough time getting workforce up there, okay? In California, taxes and water supply issues. So I think North Carolina is in a good position, and not just here at this mega site, but there are other mega sites. And the important thing is when you look at all these different states, when one semiconductor industry shows up, it becomes a base and others start showing up. It's kind of like Amazon. Once Amazon shows up, then all of a sudden everybody recognizes this a logistics hub, okay? And other people start showing up. So same thing with semiconductor industry. So I want to look at what would be a potential tax revenue given that we have a phase one permit for 2 million square foot, and how that can turn into rubber meets the road dollars for you here at Person County. Your tax rate is 72 cents per hundred. Depreciation schedule is an A10 on the North Carolina Department of Revenue, which assumes roughly a 10-year service life for equipment. It could be in this industry that equipment might last a little bit shorter time on, maybe 6 or so. But when you look at the average depreciation over the life of the equipment, it's about 62.7% is what you get the tax on. Assuming a $2 billion investment, and the average wage of these jobs seems to be somewhere between $80,000 and $90,000. So we looked at $85,000. So when I put those numbers all to paper, and the 2 million square foot's on 170 acres, which is about 15% of your site. $2,000 per square foot is what we use, which actually is probably a low conservative number. We give you a $4 billion investment. The building shell itself is, for these types of facilities, around $400 per square foot. It could be $500, it could be $350, but I think $400 is a good conservative number. And then you're about 1,600 square foot for business and personal property within the facility. Another thing to point out is these guys are heavy water users, and these projections do not include your water and sewer revenue, okay? Because usually your water and sewer entity should have a capital recovery budget built in, and they can help pay for a lot of water and sewer infrastructure based upon what they're selling that water for. If they're planning it appropriately, they can. Assume 2,000 employees at $85,000. Annual direct payroll And that's not indirect payroll, direct payroll, okay, is 170 million. And then that direct income tax for the state of North Carolina would be $8.9 million. Okay, again, these businesses usually have a 2 to 3 multiplier effect. So you won't have as many jobs paying 85,000, but you'll have a lot of other jobs out there that are going to be suppliers to the business that will provide additional income to the state. Now, when you add these numbers up in terms of your tax rate and your depreciation schedule, I come up with roughly real estate taxable at 800 million, tangible personal property taxable at 3.2 billion, annual real estate tax revenue of about 5.7 million, and then average business personal property of 14.47, give or take, okay? What does that add up to? That adds up to about $20 million a year in annual tax revenue for phase one. That's just phase one, okay? So that gives you an idea of how important it is to get first from there. So in municipal terms, and I'm sure the county administrator would probably appreciate this, what is your bonding capacity, okay? That tax revenue gives you the ability to reinvest in your community because you get that for infinity or as long as the facility is there. At $20 million a year, if you look at bonding in the municipal market, a 20-year loan is about 3% interest. They're coming in sometimes as low as 2 and 2.5%. That gives you about $300 million in borrowing capacity. On a 30-year loan at 4% interest, that's about $350 million in borrowing capacity, okay? And again, this is not including all the other indirect benefit that would go with it. You get these economists that were projected, they'll project several billion, but everybody thinks those numbers aren't realistic, so we stick to what we do know and what we will always know. So when I look at the mega park, there are certain assets that I think you all have that not a lot of other facilities have. And I'm very familiar with the CAM facility and the mega sites along the 421 corridor, Greensboro-Randolph mega site as well too. Y'all have got proximity to RTP in Durham. They don't necessarily have that. Y'all got reasonable proximity there. Being a Duke graduate and not a Chapel Hill graduate, so I'm sorry, Ms. York, about that. You know, there's great research institutional knowledge sitting in and around the Research Triangle Park. You have a high quality of life. I grew up on a farm, 500-acre farm. I love the country life, okay? I spend every weekend I can on our family farm. You have excellent energy infrastructure. You have an excellent water supply. That's getting to be more and more of an issue right now because people are tightening down on the permits because they're afraid that we're going to dry up in the next drought. You have access to workforce. And not only that, you have access to workforce training. That's another element that's very, very important with the community college system, with the universities that can do research, with that higher education. You have that access to major markets, and you have a great potential return on investment. And to be quite frank, with what's going on post-COVID, I don't think your timing could be any more perfect for the reshoring, nearshoring, and the COVID-19 shift to these key industries. So I do a lot of these presentations. I probably do 20 or 30 a year, give or take. I also teach in an Industrial Development Authorities Institute class, which usually have about 50 or 60 people once a year to come to that. But there's some commonalities we see that are with communities that are very economic development savvy and very good at being successful at it. But one, they're very proactive and intentional about it, okay? They aren't making any bones about it. We want to be the best community for a company to come work at, be at, play at, whatever. We want you here, and they're very proactive and intentional about it. You understand it's a long-term game. It's not an election cycle buzzword. You know, you need to have a policy that's going to last and be sound and last from election to election to election to election. That's very important. You need to have that comprehensive economic development strategy, and then you need to execute on it. I wrote a business book about very successful business people, and they're saying, don't plan, execute, okay? Planners get left in the dust. People can go out and execute, make things happen, and they can read the situation and what's over the horizon and execute. You need to understand your assets and your sites, understand your cost drivers and your revenue drivers, because you need to be in a position where you can defend the public spend and say, I want to know where it goes from a good deal to a bad deal, because every site selection consultant will try to push you right to the edge of what's a good deal and turn it into a bad deal. And you need to know where those lines are so you can stand up here in the public and say, yes, we made a good decision. We're going to get our return on investment. And that's why we made the decision to go with this particular incentive package. You need to remove as many political hurdles or risks for the prospects. Anytime something has to go through a political process where there's a public hearing involved, that does create a little bit of angst. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but it does create a little bit of angst, and that can become a site eliminator. So all things being equal, if I've got an equal site over here and I don't have to go through an extensive public process, I have another site over here I like equally, but I have to go through it, very well could be the other site wins. You need to respect that confidentiality and prospect market sensitivities. And that goes the same thing about, do you want to put a set of plans forward under an EDC name or not? Are you in a position of making a good decision for your constituents? That's why you're elected. If you don't make a good decision, you probably won't get reelected, but that's the way the government process works. You got to have a fast track permitting process in place. It's probably more important for the urban areas than it necessarily is for Person County. I remember we went into an urban area. We were doing lumber liquidators, 1 million square foot facility. And we walked into the room for the pre-meeting for plan submission. We had 25 people sitting in the room representing 14 different departments. They would get it through. Small rural locale like this, you can probably get 3 or 4 people around the room. Yeah, we'll turn plans around in 7 days, and all goes well. And plain and simple, they get it. If I sit here and explain to you why you need to be playing in the economic development game and helping you justify it, then I've already lost my battle. You either understand it or you don't, and that's the way it works in this business. So I'd just like to say thanks for your help to make Person County and North Carolina successful. And as I said, we put a man on the moon earlier. Working together, we can accomplish anything. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your time.
So, does anybody have any questions?
Did Brenda get a copy of the slide presentation, a print copy?
I just gave it to this gentleman, and I can email a PDF copy to everybody.
Okay, great.
As well.
Great.
So.
Well, I'm blown away with just the numbers. Just the potential for what the mega park could potentially bring for the county. So I'm assuming that we're like between a tier 2 and 3 at this point with our site readiness.
I think you're closer to a tier 4 than you think. You're in that tier 3, tier 4 category. I believe they're still lacking some water and sewer infrastructure to get to the site, if I recall correctly.
Sure, yeah.
But as long as you can guarantee you can get that delivered simultaneously within building and facility, you should be pretty close to a tier 4.
What was that about water?
I'm sorry.
What was your comment about water to that site?
Yeah, I'm not 100% clear. Has the water already been constructed to the site yet or not, or has it already been, is it in plan?
Water line is.
Water is,
not
sewer is not, yeah.
Sewer's not, okay.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Okay. All right. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Item number, I've lost count now. Go away. Item, yeah, is it dinner time yet? Breakfast.
Mr. Chairman,
I'm sorry.
may I interrupt? Could we take a 5-minute recess?
Yeah, we can do that.
Pardon?
We can do that. Yeah, we will. 5 minutes.
Motion for a 5-minute recess.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Thank you.
Good to see you, Phil.
Where did
Thank
Eric?
you.
Okay, we're back in session now. Item number 11, permitting process improvement plan. Manager York and Catherine Caddy.
We'll try to cover this important item swiftly, but wanted to be responsive to the turnaround time that we are seeing on our permitting process. So staff has pulled together some strategies that we want to flesh out with the board to try to make some improvements on the permitting turnaround that it's taking right now. We're wanting to be responsive and we're wanting to improve customer service. So back in April, we heard from the Home Builders Association about some of the delays and some of the concerns that they were having. And so we wanted to flesh out some opportunities that we feel like we could maybe make some improvements in that area. Right now, we're seeing the building permit process taking about 20 days, and that's if everything else is completed. So we have proposed some strategies to help shorten that. But we also wanted to make sure that everyone knew that we had been committed to improving technology over in the permitting process for quite some time. So we have invested nearly $300,000 in EnerGov, a permitting system that will connect all of the departments, and we're hoping that that will be fully implemented at some point this summer. However, we're hearing and seeing that the construction demands on these departments are growing, our housing market is growing, and each of these departments are providing a variety of services with a small limited number of employees. We've included in your packet some monthly workload measures and reports showing the fees that have been collected, as well as just how many permits have increased over the last year versus this time previously. Catherine is going to come up and walk us through some of the strategies that we'd like for you to consider implementing. I have also talked with you about in the upcoming budget some further investments related to staffing, and we want to talk to you about how we might be able to expedite that process a little bit. So Catherine will walk us through those, and we're looking for some feedback on ways that we can help improve the permitting process for everybody.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So first on our list of recommendations would be new positions that had already been requested by the departments to meet the needs that we are aware of that are out there of being able to move the permitting process along and consider the high number of applications that are coming through. So there are two new positions that are currently included in the manager's recommended budget for fiscal year 22. One is for a senior building inspector in the inspections department, or a chief inspector. This would be someone with high-level certifications, the level 3 certifications. So they would be able to inspect the larger buildings, commercial buildings. Currently, our inspections director is certified at that level. Our other two inspectors are level 1. So that means a lot of the larger projects fall to him and take him out of the office to do those. So this would help manage that workload by adding another higher level certified position within the department. Environmental health is requesting an environmental health specialist who would be able to complement the staff that we already have of environmental health specialists and to help move the review process along more quickly within that division. So we are proposing that instead of waiting until July 1st for these positions to be approved in the budget, that we are requesting that the board go ahead and authorize the addition of these two full-time positions, and Human Resources would begin the recruitment process so that we could hopefully have someone in place to start around July 1st rather than just getting that recruitment process kicked off and then waiting or needing a couple of months to advertise, evaluate candidates, interview, and fill the position. So that would help expedite filling those positions. So we're asking for that approval, and the manager's recommended budget will include funding for those 2 positions. So with new staff in place, the departments will be able to better address the backlogs that exist and the influx of applications. We do want to acknowledge, however, that there is going to be a training period, and that there is not going to be immediate results from adding these 2 new positions. Hopefully, if we get an inspector in who is highly certified, they will be ready to hit the ground running. An environmental health specialist, they will recruit for someone who's trained, but it may be that they find someone with less experience just due to the current market, and there is a training period associated with getting that person fully up to speed. So that is one option that we are recommending for improving the process. Another thing that we could consider is trying to hire some contract staffing or temporary employees in the interim who could help to meet the need before we can fill the full-time positions. There would need to be some additional funding for that in this fiscal year. Each department is estimating about $5,000 to help cover that arrangement. And we may be able to identify some money within those budgets for those in those departments, or it may need to come from contingency or another source. But if that's something the board would like to move forward with, we would identify the funding and bring forth a budget amendment at your next meeting. It is a short-term solution. It will require additional oversight from our existing staff. It may be difficult to find someone who is qualified to provide that service, so it's not necessarily the most efficient approach, but it may, if we can find the right person out there and have some funding available to hire them, might help here in the short term. Another option that we've considered is adding an express plan review within the inspections department. So this would apply to the building permit process, and this is similar to a process that is already in place within the environmental health division, and it is in place with other surrounding jurisdictions. And this is actually something that the home builders had requested. One service that our inspections department provides is residential plan reviews. That is not required by the state that they perform that service. So that does require some additional staff time to provide these residential reviews. My understanding is that those residential reviews help to prevent problems that could occur and cost additional time and money on down the road if our staff is looking at these plans up front and working with the builders to resolve issues before they get started. And it is also a benefit to the smaller builders who may not have a need to go out and get engineered plans for their project, their smaller scale projects. Residential plan review suffices. But there have been requests, particularly from those who are doing larger projects, that with an engineered stamp on the plans, that they be able to move up further in the line, because it would require less staff time to review those plans since the engineer has already given their approval, and then they could move through the process faster. So what our staff has recommended is that we could implement this express review process with an additional fee. We would still offer the service of doing residential plan reviews, but if someone who's applying would pay the additional fee, which staff is recommending could be around $300 for this express review. We have noted that in Wake County, the fee's $300, in Durham County, it's $600. $300 may be something to consider for that additional part of the process, but that would, if the builder has taken the additional step of getting the engineered plans, that could move them faster up into the process to move their application through the process at a quicker pace and be considered to move on forward. Another thought that has come up, or recommendation that, or discussion point that came up in the meeting, was whether or not environmental health and inspection staff could conduct simultaneous reviews. That is difficult at this point, particularly with our paper-based process. Once we move to InterGov, it is going to be easier to share information and notes back and forth. The way the process is set up now is that environmental health considers the applications that are coming to them. They work to make any adjustments that are necessary, do their review, issue their approval, and then that goes to zoning. There's a pretty quick turnaround in zoning for issuing their permit, and then it goes to building inspections. But it is difficult for the inspection staff to start their review until those other approvals have been made in case something changes at those other two levels. If they've looked at something and then it changes, then they're needing to redo work that they've already done if they got started on it earlier. So again, once InterGov is operational, staff can make notes on drawings that they are sharing through the system versus having multiple hard copies in different places that may get adjusted based on each step in the process. So we are looking forward to InterGov being fully operational over the summer, and that helping with the ease of the process and efficiency of the process. We had planned on doing a brief demonstration of the InterGov system this evening, but our inspections director is sick. He is not able to join us for this meeting, so we are not going to be able to do that brief demo, but he does plan to be able to do a more detailed presentation for both the home builders and the commissioners a little later on, once we've gotten more of the functionality programmed in the system for environmental health and inspections as well. He'll do a thorough overview of that system for everyone. So I just flew through quite a bit in the interest of time, and you can refer back to some of the details in your packet, but we'll be glad to answer any questions that you may have or discuss any of these points further.
I have one question. I know we talked at the last meeting when we were meeting with the builders. My understanding is first of all, it's hard to fill these positions. Secondly is, from a salary standpoint, are we competitive with the surrounding area? Because we're not the only one looking for these positions.
Right. And human resources staff is currently looking at the salaries to ensure that that's the case before we do initiate recruitment.
And the thing is, I'm looking at your recommended action. Certainly, I think we need to look at the new positions, but the thing that would help immediately would be the residential express plan reviews.
Mm-hmm.
I would think that would be something, if we could implement that immediately, that would at least start getting some things pushed through the system. That's just my thoughts.
We agree, and we like the idea that it gives the contractor the option. So we're not forcing them to give up the residential plan review if they don't want to, but if they work with it and are able to get an engineer stamp, then it would allow them to expedite the
And
plan
if it's a
review.
mistake, it's, they understand the risk they're taking.
Right.
If it's a mistake, and they have to go back and correct whatever it is
Right.
and how much it costs. So.
Yep. It's on his end.
Huh? Oh, there we go. Mistakes will be caught during the inspection process. That's how it kind of works, right? Yeah, okay. Okay, so
The
my-
review process, though, is meant to head off those
exactly.
ahead of time.
So what's the additional cost of an engineer's stamp on a set of plans to the builders?
We had,
Yeah, it's about
$600 to
$600 to $800 is what we were quoted.
That's what the
Price
engineer
range.
charges to, okay,
Yes.
so, and you mentioned something about adding additional fee for the
A
express?
county fee that would be paid to the county in order to.
Expedite so you're asking them to basically put up another $700, $800, $900 added to their cost for this expedited process?
Right, because they're displacing other plans and permit applications that have been in place longer.
Well, they're taking them out of the queue.
Right.
They're getting expedited, so they're not having to be processed, so they're saving time. I don't know why we should
staff
jeopardize,
still-
well, I don't think we should charge them a penalty for speeding up our process.
There is still a review process by staff. Staff still has to review those plans. It just does not take as much time, or the process is not as involved at the staff level. But staff do still have to review the plans with the engineer stamp. There's just an additional assurance there, and they don't have to be reviewed in as much detail.
So we're saving days of time, hours of time.
I'm not sure.
I'm not sure.
Okay.
Yeah. Plus, it's also hopefully helping the application be complete with fewer issues that might have to go back and forth as well. So that could help with expediting it.
But it is an option that the contractor and the
Right.
customer would have the privilege of yay and nay, one way or the other.
Sure, and then it's
Okay.
up to the board to determine whether or not the county would charge a fee for having that particular option available to contractors.
Just not, I don't know if it's off topic or not, but the software that we're working with now, it's a piloted program at this point, or?
That's sort of where we're at with it, but it's an implemented program that we've purchased and are transitioning to. We have piloted it with a couple of builders so that
Okay.
they could try it out. And so we're really more in a testing phase still. Have not brought all three of the departments online yet, but it has been piloted through the inspections, building permits process with a few builders. So we're working out some of the kinks.
Any projected dates there as to when you might go countywide with that?
We're hoping to be fully implemented at some point this summer. I think our CIP document had said sometime towards the end of June. We've just,
When that's done, it's one department can see the other, and
yes,
so a contractor in the field could see what's going on.
yes. All of the
Yes.
departments can view the status of any of the applications.
Can we
And
give
the
it a steroid
contractors-
shot?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
Can we give it a steroid shot and move it along?
Well, that's what I'm wondering. What training is involved with this, or
Yes,
is
so
staff doing that, or
Both Lori and Harold Kelly are here, who are representing departments that are implementing the software. They have been hard at work at that process for well into a year at this point.
And at this point, it's a matter of finalizing the forms and the fields and the way they're talking to each other within the system. So staff is working with the Tyler Technologies implementation team on getting all of that fine-tuned. Correct? It's very close.
Back to what Commissioner Sims had asked was about making sure that we're competitive salary-wise and getting qualified people. Are we offering any kind of bonuses? Are we offering any incentives? If the marketplace is really competitive and we want people with experience so they can hit the ground running, is it serve us well to do something like that? And has it
We're
been done
looking
before?
at that. We are seeing a number of communities who are recruiting through signing bonuses and all sorts of different things we've looked at. But this is not a Person County challenge. This is really a statewide issue for both of these fields. We're just not seeing a lot of qualified candidates, and they are very expensive. Both of these positions, along with the software, are well over a penny on your tax rate.
Mhm.
It would, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, it would be nice to know, I mean, I've already said it was my number one thing to go ahead and get going, so residential and express reviews. It would be nice to know how much we could how quickly it's going to move the process and move the permit. If we knew that, because again, as the builders who are here have told us, you go a few days and all of a sudden that cost that was a dollar for a piece of lumber is now going up to $5, $6 a piece of lumber.
Right.
And then there's that job you've already bid on, or you've already quoted somebody a price. Now you got to go back and tell them,
Right.
hey, that house you're going to build now is going to cost you another $30,000, $40,000, $50,000. So again, time is the essence as far as trying to save them and save the consumer
Right.
as we move along with this.
I would say that there's not a silver bullet that's going to suddenly give us a 24-hour turnaround. I think there are multiple angles that we need to approach this at and implement several of these in order to, make the investment that will eventually yield some results for us.
While we're looking to hire, can we get consultants, outside, contractors to help fill in that gap while we're looking to hire? Even if it's just plan review?
We think so.
One of the options that we considered. So that will require some additional funding in this fiscal year. We can certainly seek out either someone to work on a contract basis or as a temporary employee with the hopes of finding qualified individuals who could do that for us.
What do we do next? I'm sorry, what do we do next?
I think we're looking for the green light on which of these you'd like to implement, and then we would bring a budget amendment back at your next meeting to allocate the funding for whether it's the temporary position. That's really the only one that would require any funding. We're suggesting $5,000 for each department to be able to contract. There's no guarantee that we will find a qualified applicant.
Understand, but we can try to fill a gap while we fill positions. Okay.
Trying, at least to show that we're wanting to be responsive and to provide better customer service.
If you will, like Mr. Barker mentioned earlier, time is money. I'm a contractor myself, and I know this for a fact. I don't think you're going to find a part-time worker who's going to be willing to work a couple of months, 3 months, unless it's somebody retired.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Did I hear the end of June, we're going to have both of these departments tied together, hopefully?
In Intergov is what, in the system,
Yes.
that is
That's our
what we
hope.
are
That's the
shooting
projected
for.
date by the end of
Yes.
June? Okay. Well, I don't think we need to waste any time. I think we need to get somebody hired.
We'd like to move forward with the advertising of the positions.
I get it.
We just need to make sure that we will have support to fund the positions because funding is not currently available for those positions. But if we can go ahead and go through the hiring process and then the budget is adopted, that's when we would fund the 2 positions, 1 in each department.
Move something here to over here.
Anyone would like to make a motion related to presentation we just had?
Say, I didn't hear that. Please say that again.
Was you making a motion?
Yeah, I said, would anyone like to make a motion based on the presentation we just had?
Do you want
I would love
I'd make
to.
the motion.
quantify it? You want to quantify
Talking
it?
about the
2
written for
positions.
position.
That's what
Yes.
she's requesting.
Yes.
And I would also tag on the residential and express plan reviews.
Yes.
Do that as well, work on that. If we can combine them, if not, I'll make the motion on each one, but how do you
You want
want
them
that?
separate, Madam Clerk?
Separate, I think that we're hearing support for moving forward with the new positions, begin the hiring process for that, allocating funding through a budget amendment at a future meeting for the contract temporary workers, and to go ahead and implement the express plan review for building permits.
And also look at the potential of signing bonuses with the caveat that they stay with us for a period of time?
We will make sure that the salaries we're posting are competitive. Yes, I'll look into that.
Okay.
And would the board like to implement a fee for the express review process?
No.
No. Not in this.
No.
They're hurting enough now.
Okay.
We're beating them to death by not getting these permits done. The lumber industry is blown out of the basket. These contractors, these home builders, this has gotten out of hand. It's not our fault that the turn of the market has turned the way it has. But we have to do something to help these guys. And as soon as possible.
All right, we're clear.
Yes.
Thank you for the feedback.
Yes.
Okay, Madam Clerk, would you restate that motion, please?
As the county manager summarized it, that Commissioner Sims is making a motion authorizing the 2 new positions to start that process for recruitment and hiring, as well as approving the residential express planning review, as well as allocating the needed funding to have the temporary workers in the interim, all the while confirming that the salaries are competitive, as well as looking into the potential salary bonuses. Is that including the Commissioner Sims?
Yes, with no charge for the express.
Express.
Yes, thank you for that.
Okay, we have the motion. Further discussion? None. All in favor of the motion as stated, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Kathy.
All right.
Item number 12, recommended capital improvement plan for fiscal years 2022 to 2026.
Yes. Good evening, Commissioners. Another important component of your upcoming budget, recommended budget that you'll be receiving at your next meeting is for you to adopt the 5-year capital improvement plan that was presented to you on April 5th. We've since had a presentation on a debt model with further capital investment down the road. And so I'll just remind you that this serves as a planning tool. You are allocating funding only for the upcoming fiscal year. So although we're looking at projects that span 5 years and beyond, you're just allocating the next year's funding for that. And we are asking for $2.46 million to be appropriated from your general fund for next fiscal year for the capital improvement plan. This contains projects for county, school system, and the community college as well. Are there questions that I can answer about the document or project schedules?
I'm assuming at any time these can be revised and edited.
Yes, it's just a plan, and
Just a plan, right?
a budget is really just a plan.
Okay, just confirming.
Any further questions of Ms. Jordan? What's the pleasure of the board to have a motion of any type?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve as presented. Any further discussion with board members? No further discussion. All in favor of the motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried.
Thank you.
Well, my report is short. I would just simply like to remind everybody.
Mr. Chair, point of order.
I'm sorry?
There's still an agenda item.
What did I miss? 13. Oh, I'm sorry. You can tell it's getting late and I want to go home.
It's way past 6 o'clock, Gordon.
Yeah. Item number 13, review of the board's rules of procedure. Commissioner Gentry, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. I just want to, I'm going to make a motion here in a second, but I want to do a little presentation here. My fellow members advised me as a new member coming into this board how important it would be for us to show unity and work as a team, even if we disagreed as we came into office together, as we were sworn in. So I'm going to speak to the actions taken by members of this board on April 2021, where a majority coalesced in private to bypass open discussion and debate with the entire board. It was a stunning stunt which rammed through the last-minute agenda item, which quickly went to vote and passed 3-2. There was no healthy debate, and this sends a clear message to the body public, as well as to other commission members, that 3 alone could and would make a decision for this county behind closed doors. May I remind you, my esteemed colleagues, you are not sovereign rulers, but elected servants of the body public. And so I would like to make a motion to change the rules of procedure as they currently are stated. They would go back to 1984 when they were originally adopted, and they were changed in 1997 to add, the county manager shall not accept any item for placement on an agenda, nor shall any item otherwise be added to the agenda unless it's accompanied by a short and plain synopsis succinctly summarizing the matter to be considered by the Board of Commissioners and the action, if any, requested by the board. And I'd like to add that it would need to be unanimously approved for addition of all body members. We've got one rule that says an agenda item has to be placed on the agenda in a timely manner. And I want to say it has to be at least 3 working days prior to the meeting. Last minute agenda items could be added, but I think it needs to be discussed as to what the content is. And it needs to be a majority vote to add the last minute agenda item, or it needs to be put on the future meeting agenda.
So that's your motion.
That's my motion,
Okay.
yes.
Discussion, board members?
Mr. Chair, I tend to disagree with that motion because I think there's going to be items between when we get the agenda to the following meeting, which can be, we get it on Tuesday, usually, and then our next meeting is Monday. So there could be some things that need to be added. And I don't think it has to be a majority 5-0, I mean, not a majority, but a 5-0 unanimous vote. I think that we have had other things that have been brought up and voted that were not always unanimous. And so I don't see that we need to change this rule at this time.
I would like to hear from our attorney on this, such a motion and issue, if you don't mind, Mr. Hankins.
Well, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, I don't know how many times I heard a former Speaker of the House say, looked out at members of the House and said, ladies and gentlemen, these are your rules. Well, these rules of procedure are important to you all. You can amend, the board can amend these rules any way you see fit, as long as you don't do anything that's inconsistent with the statutes. This issue of adding or not adding items to the agenda, the draft agenda, is important. Unless and until you put a provision in the rules that says something else, the board has inherent authority to add items by majority vote to the agenda. The meeting is the board's meeting. The agenda is the agenda for your meeting. What the previous board did explicitly in the current rules of procedure was to put that provision in, saying that any one commissioner may offer a motion to add an item to the agenda. And it's human nature to tend to agree to do that when one of your fellow commissioners makes the motion. What you can do, each of you, if and when a motion like that is made, is to ask some questions. Commissioner Gentry and I had this discussion. Mr. Chairman, I think it certainly would be in order for any commissioner, after a motion like that has been made, to ask, what is this about? Is this going to be an action item? Are you going to make a motion for the board to do something? In other words, become informed about what is proposed before you vote to add the item to the agenda. You can certainly do that without amending the rules. But you all certainly can, if you wish, the majority of you amend these rules as suggested.
Comments? Okay, so we do have a motion on the floor. All in favor of that motion as presented, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Ladies and gentlemen, you have just witnessed your commissioners, the majority of your commissioners, tell the public that they don't need to communicate with the rest of the board.
And I disagree.
Sure. Show of hands. All in favor? All business week, and there are a lot of things going on in Person County during this week. I think we have quite a few small businesses in the county, and we'd like to support them and in the activities this week. And that's all I have. Manager York.
That the total appeals received was 596. To our last rate appraisal of 2013, when we had 3,500. So much less. They did start the acceptance of the appeal process with the Board of E&R today at 9, and they will adjourn the acceptance on May 24th at 9. So in 2013, there were approximately 500 appeals that were heard by the Board of E&R, and we're projecting with this level that have been filed, we're thinking maybe somewhere around 85 or so will probably be heard. So just wanted to update you, and for the public, it's not too late to appeal to the Board of E&R if you would like to do so. Thank you.
Commissioner Perrier.
No report.
Commissioner Sims.
No report.
Commissioner Gentry.
Yes, I'd just like to mention that with the COVID past year that we've gone through, the DSS is having an extraordinarily high amount of children that need foster care. We're in need of foster parents in the county. We're probably double, if not a little over double the need than we were a year ago post or pre-COVID. So if anybody knows of anybody or is anybody interested in being foster parents, if you contact the director at DSS, that'd be great.
Thank you. Commissioner Palmer.
Yeah, I have one comment. I would appreciate in the future if you guys would put your mouths up to the microphone where I can hear you. This is a lot of echo here. I did ask our IT guy to turn the volume up tonight, and he did, which helped tremendously. But you guys wearing these masks that cover your mouth and you're talking low tone with really a lot of bass. It's hard to understand a third of what you guys are talking about. So I would appreciate it if there's any way possible in the future, just pull the mask down while you're talking and put it back up. We're 6 feet apart. Thank you.
At this time, we need to go into closed session. Closed session number 1, a motion to enter into closed session for General Statute 143-318.11A4 for the purpose of discussion of matters relating to the location or expansion of industries or other businesses in the county. Economic Development, with the following individuals permitted to attend: County Manager Heidi York, Clerk to the Board Brenda Reeves, Economic Development Director Sherry Wilborn, County Attorney Ellis Hankins, and Jordan Jones, UNC School of Government Development Finance and Initiative, and add to that list EDC President, Mr. Philip Allen. We have a motion to go into closed session.
So moved.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, none, motion carried. So we'll pause a few minutes here and be in closed session.